You get dressed every morning without thinking about it. A shirt, pants, maybe a jacket if it's cold. It feels automatic, almost invisible, like breathing. But somewhere back in your ancestry, a human being had to invent this. Had to look at an animal skin and decide it belonged on a body, not just on the ground. And the real answer for why that happened is far stranger than it got cold outside. Your body is naked by design. Every other mammal your size carries a coat of fur that regulates its temperature automatically. You do not. Somewhere in your evolutionary past, you lost almost all of your body hair. Scientists still debate exactly why. Some link it to sweating and endurance hunting. Some link it to parasite control. Either way, you were left exposed. Bare skin, in a world that would eventually turn brutally cold. So when did you start covering that skin? You might think there's a simple archaeological answer. Dig up the oldest tunic, carbon date it, done. But clothing doesn't survive. Fabric rots, hide decomposes. Tens of thousands of years erase almost everything soft. So how do scientists know when humans started wearing clothes if the clothes themselves are gone? The answer comes from something you'd never expect: lice. In 2003, biologist Mark Stoneking led a study that looked at human body lice, the kind that live in clothing rather than on skin. Body lice are a genetically distinct species from head lice. They can only survive in fabric nestled against warmth. That means they could not have existed before humans wore something to live in. So Stoneking's team compared the DNA of body lice to head lice and calculated how long ago the two species split apart. The estimate landed around 170,000 years ago. That's the moment, hidden in insect genetics, when clothing entered human life. Not a cave painting, not a tool, a parasite told the story instead. And that timing lines up with something else happening on the planet: ice ages. Around that period, Earth was cycling through brutal glacial phases. Temperatures plunged across Africa and Eurasia. Humans who had shed their fur millennia earlier were suddenly facing conditions their bodies were never built for. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan, who has spent years studying prehistoric clothing, argues that this wasn't a single invention. It was a technology that evolved in stages. First, simple wraps, animal hides draped loosely over the shoulders for warmth, with no shaping or stitching at all. Later, something more advanced, fitted garments, sewn together, built to trap heat against the body. Gilligan points to a detail most people would overlook: bone needles with tiny eyes, sharp enough to pull sinew thread through hide. These needles start appearing in the archaeological record around 40,000 years ago, right as modern humans were pushing into colder regions of Europe and Asia. Here's where it gets strange. Neanderthals lived in Europe through the same brutal cold for far longer than modern humans did. Yet almost none of these needles show up at Neanderthal sites. Researchers studying Neanderthal remains have found evidence they likely wrapped themselves in unfitted hides, similar to a cape, rather than sewing tailored clothing. Why does that matter? Because tailored clothing traps air against the skin far more efficiently than a loose wrap ever could. It's the difference between draping a blanket over your shoulders and zipping up a coat. Some researchers have proposed that this gap in clothing technology may have given modern humans an edge that Neanderthals didn't have, letting them survive and expand into colder territory more successfully. Is a sewing needle really that powerful? Consider what it represents: planning, tool use, the ability to imagine a future cold night and prepare for it in advance. That's not just insulation, that's foresight, stitched into thread. Clothing wasn't only about survival either. Once humans had it, they didn't stop at function. They started decorating it. Ochre pigment, shell beads, patterns. Anthropologist Ian Watts has studied how ochre use spread through early human sites, often alongside symbolic behavior and personal ornamentation. Clothing became a canvas, a way to say something about who you were, not just to stay warm.
Status, identity, belonging to a group, all of it layered onto something that started as a simple hide wrapped around bare shoulders. Think about that the next time you get dressed. You reach for a jacket because it's cold outside, but you also reach for certain colors, certain styles, certain brands. You are still doing what your ancestors did on the edge of an ice age, using fabric to say something before you even open your mouth. The needle that sewed together the first fitted coat and the hoodie hanging in your closet are separated by tens of thousands of years, but they're doing the same job, keeping your bare, hairless, exposed body alive in a world that was never built for it. And somewhere in that history, ancient lice were quietly keeping the receipts. You get dressed every morning without thinking about it. Now you know exactly why that's possible at all.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, because the next question might change the way you see the world too.